Welcome back to the Facing Line podcast. I am Marty, KC1CWF. Sterling N0SSC normally joins me. This week he won't be here, but we have a really cool guest with us this week. This is the show where we talk about ham radio, DXing, contesting, antenna building, all that good stuff. And this week, my guest is Valerie Hotzfeld, NV9L. Welcome to the Facing Line podcast, Val.
Thanks, Marty. Great to be here.
Yeah, the cool thing about podcasting is it's a really good chance to talk to really cool people in this hobby. And I was so lucky, I reached out to Val and she said, sure. So here we are. So I originally kind of heard of, per se, Val a long time ago. I didn't even know her from where she's now quite famous from. She does a podcast, which we'll get into in a minute. I heard her on the air, and I was like, okay, who's this YL who's breaking through all these pileups and has all these running this big pileup and is really loud, and her rate is great. And I looked her up in QRZ and looked her up, and I was impressed at first. There's not a lot of YLs in the hobby, and there's certainly aren't a lot of YLs who are also contesters in the hobby. And to me, that really sparked my interest because, I'm a kid, and that's kind of an outlier in the hobby. And if you look kind of at the demographics, ham radio, especially contesting, is mainly old men. And I'm a young boy, and you're a YL. So how is that? How is it to kind of be the different person, I guess?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not really out there. You don't see a lot of YLs in the hobby unless they're, they get their ticket. The ones I knew when I was in my local repeater got their ticket because their husband was a ham, but they never really did anything with it. I've always been geeky, I guess, so I guess I didn't really fall in the typical YL or girl mode. But so, yeah, I always liked hanging out with the techie guys at work, and a bunch of them decided to get their tickets, so I went with them. But I was really kind of shy, so I was always afraid to bust in on the rag chews, so that's how I got into DXing, because they just wanted a 5'9", my name, maybe my state, and so I didn't have to work. They wanted me to call them, so when you're shy, you're like, okay, they want me. So that's how I kind of got into the whole DXing. And then when I went to a DX convention, I met a whole bunch of contesters, and it basically DXing on steroids, just going faster. So I thought, well, this is for me. I'm competitive. And so I absolutely fell in love with both DXing and contesting. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to say contesting is probably my favorite. So
you have been doing this for how long have you been licensed now?
A little over 10 years.
10 years.
My daughter and I talked my daughter into going with me, and we both walked out of there technicians back in November of 2006. I used to be KC9KIQ, and she was KC9KIR. You think they could have given one of us KC9KIS. I mean, that was the next letter in the sequence. It would have been perfect, but no. So, yeah, that's how I got my ticket way back when.
So how long ago, when did you upgrade, and then when did you really get into contesting?
Well, I was really lucky. We had a lot of active repeaters. I lived just over the border in Wisconsin, but the Milwaukee groups, there were some very active Milwaukee groups, and they talked me into being active, running net control. I was the activities manager, and everybody just kept saying, keep going now, just keep going, get it. Even if you don't use it right away, keep upgrading your tickets. So I studied. It took me 2 tries to get my general, but I eventually got that in 2009, and then I kept going, and then I got my extra first try in 2010. Ooh, so yeah. I just kept, I didn't have an HF radio. I knew absolutely nobody that DX'd or was on HF, really. Everybody I knew was on 2 meters, and, some did slow scan TV, so I guess they did some at HF, but no one that really did any DXing or contesting. I just sort of stumbled onto that when I got my free antenna book and made a loop skywire out of my antenna book with some speaker wire I had laying around, and I started hearing people from other states, and I worked someone in Mexico and Canada and then in the Netherlands, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and so that's just kind of how I got hooked in DXing. But I wish I would have had more of an Elmer in that area, starting off.
It's a really, really bad bug, and it's really hard to get rid of.
It is, because after that I was obsessed. I think I'd come home from work, quick make dinner for the kids, run upstairs, get on the radio. I probably spent 3 to 4 hours every night on the radio, and like my family and my sister, they're like,
Val, where are you going? into that
meters
radio
won't
box.
Be open now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got licensed, I had, a dipole at 30 feet, and every day I'd come home from school and I'd start working DX. And, being in one land here, I'm outside of Boston. The bands are open pretty early to Europe on 40 and 80, and I used to call CQ on 40 and see if I could work a European. And I remember the first day that I was calling CQ on 40 meters and a European came back to me with like a dipole at 25 feet. My mind exploded.
It's a high, isn't it?
It's a high.
Great.
It's a really good high.
Yeah, and busting a pileup
yeah.
that is, and you being young, I'm sure you break your pileups, and me being a YL, we break the pileups, and it's such a high with these big guns, and and I just had a simple antenna, and it's so much fun to beat all those guys out in a big pileup.
I'm not sure how you feel, but I know for me, the first time I used a bigger station, and we can talk a little bit about this in a minute. The high's there, but it's certainly, when you string up a dipole and you work DX compared to, what I'm used to now, stacks with monobenders and a kilowatt and a half, it feels different when you work DX,
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, when you do all the work yourself and, I had this I bought this, I think I might have got it for free, this manual tuner with the alligator clips with really bad soldering jobs that I had to redo and make to work because I had a Mark 706 Mark II G, so it didn't have a tuner, and to just get it all to work and some speaker wire and all this stuff, and it's such a high when you get it to work, and then when you can break a pile up, it's just amazing.
So good, so good.
It is
so good.
Compared to, now I sort of inherited this big monster station, and yeah, it's nice breaking through the pileups, but it's just not the same.
Yeah,
as
turn the stack, flip on the linear, go up 5.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as much of a challenge, so it's not as much of a reward, I guess.
But you are a pretty accomplished DXer, right? So what are your DX totals these days? Like?
I'm at 318 right now. So now that we lost Curry and Midway.
Midway, yeah.
Yeah, and then so I'm, what are we at? 337. So and I'm at 318. So I only got 19 to go. So I'm getting close, but I've really only been DXing since May of 2011. So it's, I'm fairly new, I guess. Not as new as you, but fairly new to DXing. So I'm coming up on 6 years. And
less than 6 years and already at 300.
Yeah.
Just to our listeners who may not know, let's talk a little bit about. We don't need to get to specifics here, but your antenna farm these days. What's the biggest antenna system you have right now?
Well, we got a 500-foot commercial tower, but we don't have any ham equipment.
And what's your biggest ham radio antenna system these days?
We have a 199-foot rotatable tower. So that's our biggest one. We've got, I think, 8 towers on the property. That one, the whole tower rotates. So this huge monster rotator is at the bottom of the tower, so you don't have to turn in each individual antenna. We just rotate the whole tower. I've got 3 stacks on 20, 6 over 6 over 6. I think they're at 60, 120, and 180 feet. I got a 30-meter Yagi up there, 12-meter Yagi, 6-meter Yagi, I think, is on that one too.
Yeah.
A lot of hardware on that one.
It must be really pretty to watch the full tower rotate at its base.
It is, although one time the rotator, the stop thing stopped on it, and it just kept spinning and spinning. And we turned the rotor off here in the house.
Yeah.
Or in the shack, and it still kept spinning, so we had to go shut all the power down to get it to stop spinning, but it pulled all the jumpers out.
All the coax
out of the sockets. Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but no, it is fun to watch. It's real pretty to watch, and but it does get windy here, so that kind of limits us. So we try to turn it into the direction we want it to go in case, so we don't have to turn it in the wind. We're in the middle of Illinois, which is completely flat, so it's very windy here.
I may or in the last big contest I operated in, I may or may not have turned the biggest 40-meter antenna we have south to have it freeze south and have the biggest 40-meter antenna stuck south the whole contest. But I may not have done that. I won't confess to that.
Yeah, Jerry was on a D expedition somewhere, and I decided to, I think it was NAQP or something. I did QRP, and right in the middle of the contest, the 40-meter, we have a full-size 40-meter Yagi. It's pretty huge, and it stopped turning. And, of course, it was facing South America when it stopped. And first thing he says when he gets back, "What'd you do to it?" But then when he went up, it was all rusted out. I mean, it hadn't been changed in years. So it wasn't me, but, yeah, it really affects your performance if you lose
your antennas
like
break.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the challenges of maintaining a big station, and it comes with the territory. So let's talk a little bit about. So you've been DXing and contesting for a while, and now you're doing quite a bit of contest operating these days. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, when I went to W9DXCC convention back in 2011, the Friday night food option, they had a bunch of food options, and the one I wanted to go to was Lou Malnati's Pizza, Great Chicago deep dish pizza, and that's where all the contesters went. So I got to meet contesters. I had no idea what contesting was, and so they kind of enlightened me. And so I started off with the California QSO party back in fall of 2011, and I won my category. I was the only one in my category because it was YL out of state low power.
You still won though.
Yeah, or it was last place, how you look at it. But so I got hooked. Next weekend, I think it was SAC Scandinavian Activity Contest.
Yeah.
I just went on to make some cues, and I just kept going and ended up winning first place USA. And then the following weekend after that was where I met Jerry, WB9Z. I was doing 10 meters only low power. He was doing 10 meters only high power on CQ Worldwide. And so I stumbled on his frequency, and we started flirting and emailing and all that stuff. So
now here you are.
Yeah, and now that there's two of us here on one station, it's just so much easier to do a multi-single operation. So it works out nice where he's in the chair, and then he wakes me up, then I'm in the chair, and vice versa.
So for our listeners who don't know, multi-single means multi-operator single transmitter. Or
correct.
You have typically one signal on at a time. You know, there's more in CQ Worldwide that's a little bit different, but we won't get into that at the moment. So you guys have been pretty successful in that, haven't you been?
We have. I think the first one we won was RIDI, radio teletype, and I'd never done RIDI in my life, and I was living in Wisconsin, 3.5 hours away from Jerry's down here in Illinois, and so after work, going through Chicago traffic, and I didn't get down here like 8 or 9 o'clock, and he'd already started the RIDI contest, and he showed me how to do RIDI while he's doing the contest. I hop in the chair, and 40 some hours later, we were first place USA, and we broke a record. So we really complement each other when it comes to contesting. Now, he loves to handle all the hardware, making sure all the hardware is working, everything's set up, and I'm really good at software. I minored in computer science in college, so I do all the, making sure the microham key or two is synced with the computer and the software and all the call history logs, all that behind the scenes stuff to get everything going. I do the software, he does the hardware, so it works out nice.
I'll admit I've never done a serious RIDI contest. They're always at like a weird time, and I always say, you know what, I'll get on. And every time I do, I'm never at like a big contest station, and I just get on at home and I dabble around. And it's amazing how much fun you can do RIDI. Not paying a lot of attention exactly. I guess I could say it that way. When I'm not competing seriously, I could be doing homework and contesting on RIDI at the same time because the computer does all the sending and receiving for you.
Yeah, I mean, once your macros are set up and everything on your computer, you just push buttons. And what's nice is you don't have to strain to hear, so it's not as tiring. So it's a much more relaxed contest. We'll have to get you over here for the next RIDI contest, Marty. I think it's in August.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah,
maybe I can road trip up that way.
Yeah. Good time to come.
So after RIDI, you guys moved on to, what was it, sideband. You've won a couple sideband contests too, right?
Yeah, we've done a bunch. Yeah, we do everything together. Yeah, the 160 contest, the CQ Worldwides, NAQP, you name it, we do it. Every now and then he'll want to do a contest all by himself, or I'll want to do a contest all by myself. So once a year, usually he'll do one and I'll be his contest slave. And then, a month later I'll do one. He's my contest slave. So.
Contest slave. I love it.
Yeah. Well, somebody's got to bring you food and water and give you back massages.
Yeah, it helps with the score.
It
So,
does.
yeah. So, a couple of years ago, I guess it's probably been what, 2 or 3 years ago. You started doing a online pod video. What do you podcast? What do you
Yeah, the
consider it?
podcast
Yeah.
with Twitch TV. Well, I used to watch that show faithfully, and I was in the chat room, and I happened to be piloting. And for those of you who don't know what piloting is, these de-expeditions where they go to weird, obscure islands or the other ends of the world or Antarctica or whatever. They need somebody to be sort of the communication between all the hams around the world that want to get in contact with these hams that are on this island, and so you're the kind of the communication filter between the hams and the people, these de-expeditions team on these islands. And so I happened to be the pilot for a de-expedition that was going on, and then I was getting ready to go contest not with Jerry, but with some other guys down on Saba, the island of Saba, PJ6, which is the DX call. And so I was people were asking me questions about the contest and going to Saba, and then people were also asking me about the de-expedition going on, and that's when Bob Heil, he noticed me in the chat room that I was a DXer and a contester, obviously, because those are the two things people were asking me questions about. So he asked me to be on the show. So now I'm one of the co-hosts, and I get to talk about our two favorite subjects, Marty, contesting and DXing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's something on that show for everybody. It's really nice. There's a lot of stuff about Hamfest or public service, kit building. I mean, you name it, there's something for every aspect of the hobby, which is kind of nice.
And just so people understand, because I know this because I produce a podcast every week, but maybe everybody doesn't. How long does it take you to get ready for your segment every time you do a show?
It depends. If I'm doing a learning segment, like how to set up and install LTW or something, how to whatever, those how-tos and some of those videos, usually it takes about an hour of work for every minute of video. So my segments are 10 minutes long. So figure 10 hours to put something together. Some are a little less. If you do an interview like this, I could usually pop those out in about 4 or 5 hours for 10 minutes of video.
Don't tell them why I'm doing interviews.
Aren't they? They're a lot easier, but they're fun and they're very informative. Yeah. So I try to mix it up. Show de-expeditions, show, interview people, show how-tos, it's good to have a good mix. But yeah, it's time consuming, and it's we don't get paid for the show. So it's a labor of love.
Yep.
And it is, because I didn't really have an Elmer when it came to contesting and DXing. So I feel like I should give back and help that other guy out who's just starting off and feeling unsure. What do you do here or there? How do you do a card? And, stuff like that I didn't know. I had to learn everything the hard way. So, yep.
Yeah, I mean, certainly contesting is something where there's so much nuance and there's so many ways to grow, and there's always something more to do in contesting. You always could do something better, as you well know. Where do you see kind of contesting going in general? What's next? What's coming next?
Well, now, I don't know if I think I know you guys do this, but the cqcontest.net server, it's a live server, so you can see during the contest. The way contests work now is everybody's off in their own little room. They do their contest, then they send their scores in, and you might not know for 3 or 4 months how you did in the contest. Well, now they have this contest server, cqcontest.net. You can log in, and it integrates with your logging software like WriteLog or N1MM, and N1MM or WriteLog is automatically going to send your scores as you're playing live to the server, so you can see how you're doing live. Well, I see in 5 years tops maybe that all contests will be live. You'll know after the end of 48 hours, right then and there, if you won, because everybody's going to be logged in. It's going to match their QSOs
live logging. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's the next way contesting is going to go, and I mean, just technology is just growing so fast. I easily see that happening.
Yeah. I know some people are rather secretive, and there's a lot of issues that people have internet and whatnot. But you are so right. It is so fun, especially first of all if you're not going all that seriously, or maybe you're not in it to win it per se. You don't have all these crazy antennas, and you're not addicted like us, and you don't want to spend every hour of your life up on a tower fixing antennas. Not that that's a bad thing, but you can watch how the big guns are doing and say, maybe I want to make 1/10 of their contacts every hour. Let's see how they're doing. I can follow them. And I think that's always fun, especially when I'm at home. I have dipoles and wires, and I have a little amplifier, but I'm not competitive at all. But to be able to watch other people and say, well, if they're doing this good, maybe I can do. I can try and follow them and chase them, and to me that's so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a motivator
Yeah.
watching those numbers, and it's really easy to just keep watching those numbers the whole contest, and oh no, they're catching up. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I've personally chased you back and forth on the scoreboards more than once, and
It
typically you
is
end
so
up on
much fun,
top.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, usually you guys in one land are usually way out behind us, but I usually find, like I keep up with K9CT. They're a multiple operators, multiple radio station, and we're just a multiple operator, single radio station. And so I just try and keep up. If I can stay at 2/3 of what he's doing, I'm doing good. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I use. But it is really fun when you have a horse race going and they're in the lead, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes later you're in the lead, and then they're in the lead, and it really keeps your
And
butt
it's
in the
so
chair and keeps you
nerve-wracking.
motivated. Yeah, it's fun.
And especially now, I mean, it's kind of cool. Like sometimes I know, like in some contests, I'll see that like the station south of me are working Europeans on what we think is 10 meters. You can't see what band often it is, but we're not hearing anything. And to see like people doing better than you are just gets you going so much. And you're
Oh
right,
yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah, especially if you're competitive, which most contests, I'm surprised you said you're not very competitive, because most contesters are A++ personalities and very competitive.
yes, yes, yes. We're I may not seem competitive, but I'm in it to I like winning. Winning is
Yeah.
fun.
It's much more fun to get like I say, paneling on the wall than
Yeah,
wallpaper, plaques versus certificates. Those are
yeah.
fun.
I think I have one of those coming in the mail any day now, or any year now,
Yeah.
with the way things come.
Yeah, they take a while.
Yeah,
Some people forget to send them. I've had to contact people to send them, and that's one other thing. Like you were saying, there wasn't enough YLs in the contesting world.
yeah.
Well, I contacted a bunch of states to offer up to sponsor a YL plaque,
Uh huh.
and so there's one coming up, the Florida CUSA party. I'm actually sponsoring the in-state, or the Florida, resident, or in-state Florida
Mhm.
YL high score. So
Yeah.
that's trying to do my part, because I figured the way to get women into contesting is through their state CUSA parties.
Right.
They're more likely to get on the air for that.
I mean, a big DX contest can be so intimidating.
Correct.
And anybody can do well in a CUSA party, being even with a dipole. If you're in the if when it's your state, everybody will want to talk to you,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can have a lot of fun.
And you can talk to anybody in your state and anybody outside your state. So you have the world's open to you. And yeah, so I'm going to try and sponsor more in-state YL plaques, because I think that's the way to get more YLs, and maybe as we see more plaques for youths or clubs or things like that, that's the best way. And embracing the new technology, I think that's another way to get more youths and women in the hobby. Yeah.
Talking about embracing new technology, what do you think about kind of the incoming generation of SDR radios and things like that?
Yeah, I have a Flex, which we've used for a couple of contests, but yeah, Jerry's I mean, it's going to be nice when we have it going and we use it on a regular basis. It's still nice to have the old radio with the knobs and stuff, but I really think it's nice that that's out there, and that's remote operations. I know that's a touchy subject with especially a lot of the old timers, because they worked really hard and to get their countries, and so there's a little battle going on, I guess, between the new technology and the old technology. But the only way to get new hams in the hobby is to embrace this technology. Right. And so there's got to be a good way to come up with something where everybody's happy, or at least everybody's compromising a little on this.
I'll be honest. I think SDR technology is cool, but I like my knobs. I like my knobs a lot.
Me too. It's nice having the knobs and control, but yeah, it's very nice having it all on a computer. K9CT, he's all. I mean, everything's he doesn't have the old knob radios anymore. Everything's flex. Everything's sharing amps. Sharing. I think you share amps on that.
Yeah.
It's nice and in phase and out of phase. I mean, you should see a station. You don't see any cabling anywhere.
Right.
Compared to ours, which is insane with all the wires and.
I remember this summer I spent rewiring a friend's station in early fall to complete still normal super het radios. Well, actually, we've been using a pair of ICOM 7300s there set up for SO2R or single operator 2 radio. And that way, they're SDRs, but with knobs and everything. And that's worked out well. But having all the antenna switching on the screen and what? Having all the antennas.
Kind of broke up there, but.
Yeah. Having all the antenna switching on the screen and whatnot is very cool. I think that's where it's going as well.
Yeah, and it's right in front of you. I mean, when it comes to contesting and you're doing 48 hours, the key is to do as little as possible that's going to tire you. And so the more you have to move and look around and touch this button and do that knob, the more it's,
having your computer screen at the right height so you're not looking
correct, no glare, all that stuff really aids in making a better contest score and keeping your butt in the chair the whole, however many hours you're allowed to operate out of the 48.
Yeah, that's where it's going. So I kind of heard you hinted at it a little bit earlier, but so DXing, as far as DXing goes, the big news recently has been 2 big islands have been deleted, correct?
Correct, yeah. Curry and Midway. Well, it was actually back in August 26th of 2016, Barack Obama expanded this, what is it, Papamacawanaki or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember the name. It's really long, marine whatever. And by doing that, I think it was, I don't know if it was Fish and Wildlife or who managed Midway.
Yeah, because both of those they're in the proximity or the chain of where Palmyra is and whatnot, correct?
Yeah, but that's governed by Fish and Wildlife.
Right,
so
right. That's the issue.
As long as that stays under, the rule is it has to be more than 200 miles from its where its democracy or whatever, its government is. If it's within 200 miles of another entity, it has to be governed by someone else. So, and if it can be within 200 miles, I believe, as long as there's another DXCC entity between the two of them. So, like Hawaii and Curry, Midway was before those, in the middle of that. So, and since they were, I don't think it was Fish and Wildlife, but I can't remember what they were under. But they are no more. So.
So it is. It happens. Yeah. So speaking of big DX, let's talk about Bouvet for a minute. I know you're a pilot for Bouvet, correct?
Yeah, I'm the lead pilot for Bouvet. Yeah. I think we've got about 6 or 7 other pilot stations scattered throughout the world. So they're going to send me the stuff that they've filtered from their group, and then I'm going to summarize that and send that to the gang on Bouvet. Now, Bouvet's in January, and it's considered the most remote island in the world. If you were to look it up, it's way down at the bottom of it's actually Antarctica is closer to, say, southern Argentina and Chile than this island is to that. So they're going to be sailing, I believe, from Chile or Argentina. They kind of split that very bottom part. So yeah, that it's going to be a long, I think it's 14 days each way at sea just to get there. So it's going to be 28 days of travel time.
So you spend almost a month getting there.
Well, it's 14 getting there, right. 14 getting back. Yeah.
Yeah, a month round trip just so we could get that, be at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 contacts with the island.
Yeah. Yep. And they figure, I mean, some of these, especially the further away they are and they're so remote like that, it's just very expensive to put on. And they usually ended up, some of those DXpeditions, I think they pay, cost like $3 to $10 a QSO, when you factor in the cost and how many QSOs they give out. But,
so people can donate, right? BouvetDX.org, I believe it is. And
yes, go there and donate, and they'll put you on the page. And it's a really nice way to help out before the DXpedition starts, which is really when they need the money. Right. I mean, the boats
They
The
need their
guys
money
take
before
them
they
there,
leave.
they got to get a sea container down there full of all the equipment. They need all this equipment. So yeah, that's when all the money is. They have to pay out all this money in advance,
Right.
so that's when they need it.
Don't
And
wait until you make your cues. If you
yeah,
want to, if
I
you
mean
want to work the DX, how about you help? Because
exactly. And
you
if you
got
do donate, you're going to get a quicker LOTW upload. Usually, and you get your cards instead of just wait till it's over.
remember the operators pay thousands and thousands of dollars to go, and it's not just well. Obviously, they love it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. The pileups will be probably amazing. But to make us the DXers happy, and so we can get them in our logs. And
Right.
I always think it's important that these people are giving up like over what 8 weeks of their time, 6 weeks of
Yeah,
their
it's
time.
7.5 weeks of their time where they're not getting paid at their normal job. They're paying a lot of money to go down there. It's usually extreme, unpleasant conditions. They're sitting in some metal chair and it's 20 below or 120 degrees above, sweating their butts off, to give us a new one. So it's nice to help them out and be patient while they try and work you. Yeah.
Be polite, listen to the operator, and
Use the
you'll
DX
be.
code of conduct. And,
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very exciting to see where DXing and contesting is going, and I know you'll be the person breaking through the pileup when as soon as they get on the air.
Well, sometimes it's nice being a pilot because then they usually call you. So, is NV9L out there? Yep, I'm right here.
It's a lot of
worry about breaking the pileup.
It's a lot of work though to get that lucky
is,
cue.
Yeah, I mean, on an average DX expedition, once they start heading off that way, even out to sea, right before they activate, you probably get about 50 emails a day, and then once they activate and they're on the air, you can probably get about 100 emails a day. I try and make sure I respond to every single one to the people and answer their questions if I can. And then you just kind of summarize the tone of things. If I'm getting a whole bunch of emails that they're missing an opening on 12 meters to Sweden, I'll kind of let them know that stuff. And so yeah, it's a lot of work, but you really learn a lot. Marty, you should probably try that, being a pilot. It's amazing what you learn. Like Japanese can't operate on these frequencies on this band, and
the VUs can't listen on this part of 80 meters to work people.
It's you really do learn stuff that you wouldn't normally learn when you're out there DXing, and so it really helped me become a better DXer, knowing when the openings are, and a contester, knowing when the openings are and what parts of the bands that. No one in this country can hear you in between this range and this range because there's a woodpecker kind of thing over there or whatever, so it's kind of cool. It's again volunteer, but again, it's if you
nobody's in the business of making money here. It's
no. This hobby sucks up the money. It doesn't make any money.
If you take one thing away from this show, you're not gonna get rich off a ham radio. So give up now.
Yeah, and get your kids what they say. Get your kids into ham radio because they'll never
have no money. Let me assure you, no drug money. That's for sure.
Can't afford it. Can't afford alcohol and drugs. You can only afford radios. And if you become obsessed, like most of us do, you're gonna want to spend your money there.
Right, and then you end up spending more money. You're like, I want a lot where I can put up a tower. And
yeah,
it's an addiction. Well, thanks so much, Val. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
All right.
So, and to the rest of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Phasing Line podcast. As always, please subscribe, phasinglinepodcast.com. If you really like this, if you want to hear more really smart, awesome people like Val come on the show, or me yapping on about stupid things, consider giving us a little bit of money. We're not getting rich off of ham radio, but it costs me a lot of money out of pocket just to produce this show. Software and hosting and all those things add up. So consider going to phasinglinepodcast.com/donate. Click that donate button. Pick a method, be it monthly on Patreon or one time on PayPal. Or if you can't give us any money, that's completely fine. We're not demanding money. Thank you so much. And just spread the word to your friends. And we really appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram even. I think we're on Reddit too. And we will see you next time on the Phasing Line podcast. Bye-bye for now.